Hello and welcome to a quick little tutorial video I wanted to do on how to get your controls working with Skyrim, or the best xpadder controls at least with Skyrim. So this is actually something that I actually found took a lot of experimenting with. So I just want to help anybody who needs help setting up their controller with Skyrim, particularly with xpadder, because using the Skyrim, Bethesda hates people with controllers, so I really wouldn't recommend using the controller settings in Skyrim. But let's go over xpadder. As you can see, I already have one set up here. But you know what? We're just going to start from scratch on this. And if you don't know how to use xpadder, then I suppose I should start with a new... We'll start with a new button profile. Why not? So let's do this. Go to New. Yours, it should be blank, but let's just go to New. What we're going to need here is we're actually going to need an image real quick. So we're going to open, and you could, usually with xpadder they have controller images, but you could just go on Google Images and look for just an image of an Xbox 360 controller. It's really not that important, it just kind of helps you keep track of everything. But if you don't have a folder with a bunch of controller images that came with your xpadder, then like I said, go on Google Images, look up Xbox 360 controller, look up, well, whatever controller you're using, just look up a basic image of it, and I'm going to show you. Wait, I'm looking for it. I think this, yeah, no, this one, we want a different one, because I want one that looks relatively similar to my controller. So, let's look for Microsoft, look for Microsoft 360. I think this should do it. Yeah, okay, well, this is good enough. Okay. So, what we're going to do is first we're going to get our buttons mapped. So click buttons and then just start clicking your buttons. X, there's the X button. It'll flash as soon as you click the X button. So there's that. B, the B button. There's that. A for the A button. There's that. Press Y. I'm pressing these buttons on my controller, and you can, if you ever lose track of which buttons are which, just note by pressing the buttons they flash. And there's actually something I forgot to do here that I need to do. We need to go ahead and make a new one of these, because we're not using that one. I mean, we are essentially just recreating it, but we're just going to imagine that you're starting from scratch here. So we're going to make a new one of those. Anytime we want to, we can go back to here and just go back to settings. Now let's go back to what we're doing. So now we have those buttons. Next we need our bumpers. So go back to buttons, right bumper, put it over here. As you can see, we're using the image to keep track of our buttons. That's the only reason why we're using this image. Otherwise, we don't really need one. But it makes it a hell of a lot easier to keep up with which buttons are which without having to press them constantly. Alright, so next, the start button. There we go. Then we have the back button if you're using an Xbox 360 controller. It will be the select if you're using a PlayStation controller. Although I don't recommend using a PlayStation controller, because the thing with that is there is no official PlayStation driver for PS4 or PS3 controllers, so you'll have to download something called Motion Joy, which is a very crappy program in my opinion. So you might want to just use either a Logitech controller, an Xbox, either gamepad specifically made for PC, or an Xbox 360 controller, or an Xbox One controller, because both Xbox 360 and Xbox One controllers actually have legitimate Microsoft created drivers for them. So you don't have to worry about that. So next we're going to get the left bumper, and that should do it. So now we're going to go ahead and get our D-pads enabled. All you have to do is click enable, and it's going to ask press up, press down, press left, press right. There we go. So now we've got a D-pad. Put that where the D-pad would be. Finished. Also, there's something we forgot to do in buttons. We have analog stick buttons we have to put. That's right analog stick button, left analog stick button. And these settings are best for Skyrim, but really they work well for Minecraft too. After you've seen this tutorial, you can pretty much apply most of what I taught you to every game and just play around with it. But this is just going to be specifically for Skyrim. Alright, so next we want to set up triggers. We want to enable them. So this is going to be the left trigger. This is going to be the right trigger. Finished. And for these, I guess we could just have them over here, because with this image there aren't any triggers, so we just have them there. But here we go. Now we have triggers. As you can see, they're green, they're flashing. So now we just need our analog sticks, which is easy. So analog sticks, just click enable, Move it to the left, move it up. Alright, now it knows where analog stick is. Okay, so we have an analog stick now. Done. Now we have to enable the right analog stick. To the left, up, and done. Just that simple. So now we have our base layout going, and I believe we're done here. Okay, you don't have to edit anything in there. We're completely done with that part. So now it knows where all of our buttons are. Actually, we want to... God, this actually looks kind of ugly. Let's go back to settings real quick. Give me a quick second. Yeah, this image, I really kind of don't like this image. So what we're going to do is we're going to move that a little bit just so that we can have some fucking space to work with here. Alright, this will do, I suppose. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to start off with the... Well, you can save this loadout, this layout. You know, I'm not going to because I already have a layout that's just the same, so I'm not going to do it, but just press that to save layout now that you're done with that. So first button is going to be the escape button. I put that start button, that's just how I set it up. That's easy. By pressing this, you know, I escape from any of the in-game menus by pressing the start button. Alright, and so next we want to have this be the space button for jumping. Some people like it as Y. I like it as the A button for jumping, so that will be the space bar. And the next thing we're going to set up is going to be the sheathing and unsheathing, which is the R button in Skyrim. So we're going to make that the B button. For me, I like it as the B button. Once again, some people like to set that as the Y button. I just like having R as the B button. So now, by pressing the B button, you're going to be able to sheath and unsheath your weapon. And so, next is going to be the X button. I like to have this as my interact button, which in Skyrim is E. Like how to talk to people or pick up objects is usually the E button. So I'll make that the X button. And then Y is going to be my favorites menu in Skyrim, which, if I believe correctly, is Q. So yeah, so that's going to be my favorite. So by pressing Y in Skyrim, I'm going to be able to get my, you'll see, I'll be able to access my favorites, because I like to favorite my weapons. That way I don't have to go into my inventory every single time I want to switch out my in-hand weapons. So yes, that's for favorites. And next we're going to have this for being the mouse, obviously. So all you have to do is click that little wrench, and you're going to go ahead and click mouse normal, because you don't want any of that inverted stuff, so you want mouse normal. And so the first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to go to settings here, alright? And when you're going to want to make this, for my controller, I don't know if it's the same for yours, you want to actually tweak the dead zone to make it slightly less responsive. Put it at about 30. And what that does is that just determines the overall sensitivity of the joystick. You probably won't have to play around with that, but something that you might want to end up playing around with is this over here, the diagonal size. This is highly important. So what this is your range of motion, and it's incredibly important that you increase this. What this means is that, I'll just actually show you, if it's a smaller, the smaller it is, the more rigid your range of motion is. And this is useful if you are very bad at aiming. If you're really, really bad at aiming and you want to, it's basically like, do you want to have free range of motion where it goes in a perfect circle, or do you want to have more dotted range of motion? Do you want to have it go, like, it determines the angle of up, down, left, and right. So you want to have, by moving your analog stick, you want to go directly up in a straight line, directly left in a straight line, directly right in a straight line. But for this, we're actually going to increase it, because when you're aiming, unless you just have incredibly bad accuracy, you want to be able to have free range of motion like this. See how I'm able to move my cursor around in a somewhat smooth circle? Now, if you put it all the way to max, that's actually bad, because it can actually, it's pretty much, it makes you 100% accuracy dependent. And as we know, analog sticks, I'm not trying to say that keyboard and mouse is superior. Well, keyboard and mouse pretty much is superior, although I find a controller more comfortable. But you cannot have an analog stick at the same sensitivity as a mouse, because the physical analog stick, the plastic, is just not that accurate. So what you want to do by default, it should be somewhere around 40. So what you want to do is move that. I usually have mine set around 60, I think, maybe 70. 70 is like the highest I would go, so I put it at 65. 65, that's a pretty good range of motion, as you can see. And so yeah, we can just close this. Oh, I haven't set up the triggers yet. We'll close that. Next, another big important thing is go to mouse settings, and this is where you really alter your sensitivity. So by default, on 32, that's just way too slow. We're actually going to up this slightly. Not by too much. We're going to up it to about 40, or around 40. That's good enough. So as you can see now, this should be pretty good. And in Skyrim itself, you can, if you don't like the sensitivity, I wouldn't recommend changing it in xpadder. I recommend you just change your mouse sensitivity in Skyrim, because this is mimicking your mouse. So just, if you don't like sensitivity from then on, just change your mouse sensitivity in Skyrim, and I think that's good. But really, probably, I don't recommend ever putting your mouse sensitivity above 50. That's just my recommendation. If you're using an Xbox 360 controller, the plastic joystick, I don't think it works very well with any sensitivity above 50, so I put mine around 40. There we go. My default is on 35. So next, you're going to want to go with your triggers. You want to make this your left mouse button and this your right mouse button. That way, your left trigger, this one, right, well, your left trigger will be for attacking, your basic attack, and your right one will be for whatever the fuck the right mouse button does in Skyrim. I actually forget a little. For your right hand ability, whatever the fuck. Your right hand spell or weapon. Useful. That's basically for dual wielding. So the next thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to set up your WASD, which is simple, just like that. And you're going to want to, this is very important, you want to go to settings here, and you want to make this less responsive. I usually put mine at about 60% less responsive, because what's really annoying is like just the slightest little movement will trigger the WASD keys, and that can get very fucking agitating. Also, you're gonna want to have to set this to the smallest it can go, because you want, like I said with the mouse, you don't want rigid movement. You want to be able to move this in a smooth circle, right? But for your WASD keys, you want rigid motion, because you don't want to be trying to move forward but accidentally move slightly to the right at the same time. So you want to set that all the way to small. The smallest it'll go all the way to 1, and you want to set your sensitivity probably actually not that low. Probably set it to, well, you can set it to 50. I think 60 is actually good. So that should do that. And there we go. So now you don't have to worry about accidentally moving your thumb ever so slightly and registering that as you pressing the D or the A button. It also makes it easier to walk around. So that's just what I do. Like I said, overall, something to remember is, oops, I didn't mean to do that. Something to remember is, alright, go in here. Always make sure your diagonal size for your WSD keys is set to the lowest it can go. You can play around with this dead zone if you want to make it more or less responsive. Have fun playing around with that. Generally, don't go below 40%, and don't make it less responsive than 80. But yeah, you can have fun with that, but for this, make sure it's at the lowest it can go. So we're done with that now. So the next thing we want to do is we want to equip this is Z button. That's your shout ability in Skyrim. So make that the Z button there. I like it as the right bumper. If you're left-handed, you might want that as the left bumper. You know. And so then, to get to this menu, all I'm doing is clicking. I'm click the button, just right-clicking the button. And so next for this one, on the other hand, I have this actually as a set selector. Now this is where things can get a little complicated, but follow me here. So you want to go to advanced, and then you want to go to set selector, and then you want to go to one way. You want to go to select set to one way. It should be at the very top. Okay. Alright, and click OK to that and just X out of that. There we go. And we'll get to that in a second, but first there's something I forgot to do. With this, I actually like to set a rumble feature, so go to advanced. And rumble, that's just gonna make the controller vibrate whenever I use a shout ability. You can do this, you don't have to do this. It depends on you. Let's enable rumble feature. And I have mine set usually very low, probably somewhere around 24 for both of them. Set a little bit higher. You just play around with that till you're comfortable with the vibration. Please don't use it for anything else. Wait, not judge. Anyway, so now we're done with that. Now, every time you shout, your controller's gonna vibrate. It's a little bit more immersive. I just like personalized feature. You can do that with any of these buttons if you want. If you want to feel, for some reason, vibration whenever you use one of your right or left triggers, you can add a rumble feature to that. You know, it's just that's just a little thing I like, a little touch. Completely unnecessary though. So now we have that set, and so now down here what we're gonna do is with the D-pad, and how I actually like my D-pad set up is we're gonna before we do that, we want to set the walk feature. So in Skyrim we actually want to set, because by holding on the left shift in Skyrim it lets you walk, and that's actually, I like being able to do that in tight corners and spaces to move more efficiently. So we're gonna have that toggle. We're gonna set this right here, this little switch thing, so it can toggle. And what that means is that just by pressing it once, it's gonna be held down. So you don't have to, keep pressing it. You don't have to hold it just to walk. So just press it once, and you're in walk mode in Skyrim, press it again and you're out of walk mode. That's pretty useful for going in dungeons and interiors where you don't want to knock everything over. So there you go. Alright, and so after that, let's go into over here. This is going to be your sneak mode, which is going to be the left control. In Skyrim, I already have the sneak mode for my key binding set to toggle, but if you don't, then you can just do the same thing with this. You can toggle it, but it's already like that in Skyrim anyway, so I don't need to do that. So now we have sneak mode, and so the next thing we want to do is go ahead and use the next set. So this is how sets work. Down here shows you all of your sets. xpadder has a total of 8 sets, and what this is basically when I click the left bumper like this, right? Now it puts me in an entirely new key binding set, and the reason why this is useful is for navigating the menus in Skyrim to make it a lot easier. So what we're gonna do is, how we're gonna set this up is, we're gonna make this right here is gonna be your inventory. This is going to be your this is gonna be your escape, to escape the menu or menus whenever you need to. This is gonna be your tab for accessing everything else. And this is going to be your map. So now, by pressing the D-pad up while in the set, we can access our inventory. By pressing it down, we can access our map. And by pressing it to the right, we can access every other menu, aka your perks, your skills, and magic menu. And by pressing escape, we can just exit anything that we want to. Oh yeah, and also, something that's important is over here with this one. I actually have 2 set selectors, but for the back button, I like to make that my set selector to go back to the first set. So set it as select set 1 one way, and press OK, and done. And I also usually make it this joystick just in case I'm in the middle of combat and I just want to quickly, like after you kill the boss or something, you just want to loot its corpse really quickly. So go back to this, go to set selector and select set 1 one way. So now you're wondering, how does this work? By pressing that analog stick there. By pressing the right button, we go to our menu mode, and then by pressing the analog stick, we go right on back to our regular mode. So there you go, quickly and efficiently. And so what we're going to do is we actually want to make this our mouse as well. But we're actually going to change this. We're going to go to settings and make it the same as the other one. We're going to make it slightly less responsive, 30. We're also going to increase this to about 60. Yeah, that's good. Increase that to about 60. Done. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go to mouse settings, and we're going to set the sensitivity way lower to about, that's a little too low, 27? 27, how's that feel? It could be a little bit lower, just a tad bit. 25. Alright, 25 is perfect. So now, when you open up any of your menus, like your inventory, it'll be a hell of a lot easier to use your analog stick to select different things in your inventory. You know, it's slowed down. While at the same time, let me just X out of that. I don't have it set, trigger set. Also, let's set this, before we go back, let's set this to the left mouse button and this to the right mouse button. And so, yeah, so now what this means is, what we can do is when we go back to normal mode, as you can see, my analog stick is way faster now. But then when we go into this mode here, when we go into our menu mode, as you can see, it's a lot slower. It's easier to select things out of our favorite menu, or we can select things out of our inventory, or skills, or perks, or whatever. So you kind of never have to put down your controller to work with the keyboard and mouse. So that's if you're just like sitting back on a couch or something and you really don't want to have to work with keyboard and mouse for anything. So by doing that, there we go. Alright, so now we're going to go to, actually let's go back to our menu set because we're not done with it yet. And I like to set this one as escape, just always good to have that extra escape there. So with this, I actually want to set this one to E for picking up items that are on the, usually just for picking up items that are on the ground. I set this to WASD. Make the settings the same again, make it small, make it 60% less responsive, something like that. Alright, finished. And we also want to, yeah, that should about do that. That should about do it for that. Also, we want to make this R. R is for resheathing weapon, but also in the inventory menu, R is the quick key for dropping weapons. So if you're in the inventory menu, you picked up something useless, you want to drop it real quick, all you have to do is click on it, and then just press the B button on your controller, A.K.A. R, to just quickly drop it. So that's useful. This is going to let you, I believe this is for changing and inspecting it. So go to T. Let's actually go into Skyrim real quick and test out these new settings. Let's just, no, not Task Manager. I meant Skyrim. Alright, let's see here. It's going to take a while to load here for a second. Give it a minute. Give it a few minutes, actually. It's taking a second. Give it 1,000 minutes, actually. This isn't... Wow, this is actually taking a little bit longer than I thought it would. Did Skyrim crash? Okay, there we go. And now I'm in the game, although you probably can't see that because it's set to a different display. So let's set it up to Skyrim. Okay, so now we're in Skyrim, and as you can see, our controls are working. Alright. And so now we should be in our... Alright, now how we can test, there we go. Now we're in our menu select mode right now. Okay? And we've actually forgot to change mouse sensitivity, but that's alright for right now. We can go to items, and I'll show you I have this fox pelt I don't want. Let's just press R, we can drop that. We can exit out of this. Let's go, actually let's go back in here. Yeah, so you can pretty much see how this works, and just, there we go. We're done. We're done with that. So now we're going to exit out of that. Let's go back to xpadder here. Alright, we're back in display capture now. So here's what we're gonna do. We can close that. Oh god, anyway, this is a mess. Okay, so now we can go back to our normal mode here. We want to be able to, I believe we covered almost everything. We're almost finished now. Now we're actually going to change mouse sensitivity while in menu mode. So mouse settings, move together. We actually want to make it a little bit slower than that. Yeah, because the whole point is for it to move as slow as possible for selecting objects more efficiently. So there we go. That's about right. That's about right. That feels about right. So now let's go back into normal mode. So we haven't played around with the D-pad. With the D-pad, you can make these the arrow keys. But I believe I have mine set up as... Well, actually, we're going to save this real quick so I can just see how I have mine set up again real fast. Cheat sheet real quick. So let's save this as tutorial Skyrim save. Tutorial Skyrim. So now I'm going to open up my regular Skyrim settings and see... Oh yeah, I do have those as the arrow keys. Okay. So let's go back to tutorial Skyrim. You set these as the arrow keys. And you don't have to do anything else, but just set those as arrows keys. Those are that simple. So we can save that. And also you want to be able to sprint, so you want to have to, your sprint is Alt, so there you go. You can set this to toggle if you want. I don't like to do that because sometimes I forget I have it toggled when I stop moving, and it can make navigating through menus and shit annoying. So you can set it to toggle if you want. I just prefer not to for my own personal reasons. So the next thing you're going to want to do is, actually you're pretty much done with that. The next thing you want to do is go back into here, and you still have other buttons to play around with. You have this one, which I forgot what we had this one as. Let's open up our, once again, cheat sheet, Skyrim, see what we have that as. We have it as F, that's right. Oh yeah, that's, okay, now I remember now. Okay. Tutorial Skyrim, so we're going to go back to this. We're actually going to set up these as the scroll wheels because this helps us scroll in and out of our view, so that's going to be up, this is going to be down. Also helps us scroll through the menu. And we're also going to have this one set as the F key. And we want to have this set as the F key to change, because F allows you to change your view in Skyrim. F also allows you to favorite items in the menu, in the inventory menu as well. Keep that in mind, because I like to really utilize the favorites option so I don't have to keep going into my inventory to select shit. So so next we're gonna, yeah, that, like I said, I have this set up as, I have two set selectors, because when I'm out of combat I like to use the back button, but when I'm in combat, like when I'm going through a dungeon, I like to just use the analog stick to just quickly go back to combat mode, you know, because I just stopped to pick up a weapon, maybe lose my inventory, but I want to go quickly back into combat mode. It's just good for efficiency. Alright, so you don't have to put a button here. As you can see, you can really, this is more of a, just a good example of what you can do, but you can actually set up other things here. There is something also you can set up that I actually once used to utilize, is if you want, you can have, for your W key, you can go into advanced, right? And you can actually, in assignments, what you can do is you can add a hold feature, right? So what you want to do is that you gotta add a hold zone. Let's say if it's held for longer than 10 seconds, it'll just automatically allow you to start running. So if it's held for longer than 10 seconds, then the Alt key is going to take into effect. There we go. And you can actually, I'm going to show you how this works in Skyrim in just a second. Oops, that's not what I meant. I meant this. Here we go. If it's held down for, we just changed this to, I didn't mean to change that to the 1 key. Add a hold zone. Here we go. If this is held for longer than really 10 seconds, 10 seconds is best. If this is held for 10 seconds, or you just press that, okay, 10 seconds, then you'll start running. What this means is if you hold down Y for longer, not Y, W on your analog stick for longer than 10 seconds, it'll automatically make you start running, which is useful. So you have that. Now let's actually test that out in game real quick. Let's just go first. Actually, first I'm gonna switch to Skyrim display. Okay. So now, just remember we had console open. So now we're back in game. And so now here we go. It's actually not working, and I actually know why it's not working. I forgot to do something important here that you're actually going to need to do. With this W key, my bad, you actually want to set, I'll change the display real quick so you can see what I'm doing. You actually want to set this to Alt and W as well. Okay. And so now what that means is, it wants to have to set a release time as well. Add release zone. Okay, so what this means is, if you hold down, alright, if you hold down W, alright, if you're going forward for longer than 10 seconds, and this is something I used to do, I don't do anymore, but obviously this is fucking complicated, then what's gonna happen is it's going to automatically press, it's gonna forget about W, and it's gonna go to Alt W. That's combination. So it's gonna completely forget that the W key is being pressed, and it's just gonna go to Alt W. And then it does that for about, and you can change that to how many seconds. It does that for about, let's go to 10 seconds to make it quicker. It'll do that. Yeah, about 10 seconds, that should be right. It'll do that for 10 seconds. You'll be running for 10 seconds. Something like that. You can play around with that. But anyway, we're going to get rid of that because I don't actually want to do that. And anytime you want to get rid of it, just delete. Just delete your assignments here. It's just something I used to do, and I think I still have a control similar to that for Minecraft. But yeah, so that should pretty much cover everything, I believe. We got all the buttons covered here. And like I said, if there are more buttons you want to play around with, this is just, you can add on even more. As you can see, there's still a button here to play. There's still 2 buttons to play around with. Maybe you can even add additional sets if you wanted to. You can add even more sets because you still have the analog stick buttons to play around with. So if you wanted to, once you're in menu mode, you can make this one go to another set with a whole different control scheme for separate menus. Then you can just keep going even further with this and just experiment with it until you get it right. But this is just my setup. This is how I play Skyrim. This is how I use Skyrim. And so yeah, I hope this helped you out. Hope my settings were good for you. And yeah, make sure to subscribe for some Skyrim videos and maybe more tutorials. Who really knows with this channel? Yeah, but see you next time.